Genesis 21, 8 through 14. And it says, when Isaac grew up and was about to be weaned, Abraham prepared a huge feast to celebrate the occasion. But Sarah saw Ishmael, the son of Abraham, and her Egyptian servant Hagar, making fun of her son Isaac. So she turned to Abraham and demanded, get rid of that slave woman and her son. He is not going to share the inheritance with my son Isaac. I won't have it. This upset Abraham very much because Ishmael was his son. But God told Abraham, do not be upset over the boy and your servant. Do whatever Sarah tells you, for Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted. But I will also make a nation out of the descendants of Hagar's son, because he is your son too. Verse 14, so Abraham got up early the next morning, prepared food and a container of water, and strapped them on Hagar's shoulders. Then he sent her away with their son, and she wandered aimlessly in the wilderness of Beersheba. And today I want to speak to us a little bit about the cost of obedience.
Yes.
The cost of obedience. Give us a little background about today's text. We've heard, most of us, about how Abraham wanted a son and he couldn't have one, and so God made him a promise and he told him to go out and look at the stars and see if he could number them, and he would have children more than that, descendants more than the stars in the sky that he could number. And then some time passed and it hadn't happened yet. And so Sarah had come into her own idea of what she thought would help God out a little bit. And she said to her husband, well, I have this servant that you should go and have a child with her, because I can't have any kids. So God did promise you to have a son, and so you have one with her. And so we come to this part of the story where Hagar who was the servant, had born a son named Ishmael. And then God came back, and we may remember the story of how he had said that Sarah was going to bear children, and Sarah laughed in herself, and because she couldn't believe that a woman that's 90 would be about to have a child. And so
that's right.
And so she was not sure about how that thing was going to happen. But then following that, we see that God manifested his word, and she actually did have a child named Isaac. And so at this point, we're picking up where Isaac was at a certain age, probably they say between the ages of 3 and 12, and he was young, and Ishmael, the original, the first son with the servant, he began to make fun of Sarah's child. And as mothers, we understand that there's some things we're going to tolerate, but what you're not going to do is pick with my child. And so at this point when we meet in the scripture, we see that Sarah got upset.
Yes.
And she told Abraham, get her out of here, her and her kid, because they can't. He's not going to have what is promised to my son. And what we find Abraham in verse 11, it says, this upset Abraham very much because Ishmael was his son. What we want to talk about this morning is, how often do we help God out? Do we play the role of Sarah, and we want to come up with an idea to help God get his point across, get him to the place where he had promised us he was going to get? 25 years had passed in between the time of the promise and the time Isaac was born, the initial promise. That's a long time to be waiting. And so she was saying to God, well, I'm getting older, and I'm 90. I haven't had any children yet, so you do this. And so Abraham, knowing what God had promised him, figured, well, okay, we'll go this way. This will still be my son, because he'll be the son of my loins. We have to be careful about how we want to rush God into doing what we want him to do.
I know that.
Because God didn't give them a parameter. He said it would happen. So it would happen. But they didn't want to wait. And we get into the part of being impatient sometimes, and we want to help God figure out how he going to bless us. God, you promised that this was going to happen. My child was going to be saved. I would be delivered, and I wouldn't have these financial issues. And so since you're not moving fast enough, I'm going to come up with this plan to show you that I know how to do this too. But the problem is, we didn't make the promise, we can't guarantee it. This is the problem that we get into when we try to help things out. Everything in life has a price. But is disobedience worth what you pay for?
Oh my God.
Because in this instance, we see that Abraham ended up having to take heed to what his wife told him. Sarah said, put them out. And he was upset. And he wasn't trying to hear it because Ishmael was his son.